You know I'm a bit of a broadcasting nerd and I love celebrating people who do incredible things. Thankfully, this incredible thing's been done by a friend of ours and a friend of the program. Ray Hadley is one of the most successful broadcasters in the history of radio, and he is absolutely the reigning king of Sydney radio, talk radio, and today he has done what has never been done before. 150 surveys in a row at number one. The great man, the Hall of Famer, my mate, Ray Hadley, is on the telly now. Congratulations. When you started off filling in on the edges of things at TUE, did you think that there'd be a day where you wouldn't just be in the spotlight, but you'd own the entire light, which is what you've been able to do, mate? Congratulations.
Well, I'm very humbled by your introduction, Paul, but yes, in 1982 I started doing traffic reports for the late Gary O'Callaghan. Then I joined John Tapp and Des Hoysett calling races. Then in 87 I started calling football. In 92 I used to fill in for John Laws. In 2002 I started my own program, and here we are 19 years later talking about what's been happening since 2004. And to be perfectly frank, I was just happy to get a contract for $19,500 in 1984 to call the races. And the rest has just been a dream. And today capped the remarkable period at the radio station, which is back at number one, 2GB in Sydney, and a remarkable set of circumstances for me personally as well.
Now, we all know plenty of people in media and politics. They either think they're born to rule, they were born to rule, they had either the family connections, the right school and all the rest of it. Certainly what we have in common, and I wouldn't dare compare myself to your success, but being somebody who grew up listening to it, wanting to do it, but having no real connection to it, means passion gets you through the front door and commitment keeps you there. What's your advice to people that are starting out on trying to follow a dream, because you were able to do it and you've done it against all comers?
I was fascinated by radio in the early stages, and I was fascinated by how some people could succeed and others couldn't. And I'd listen to the radio and I thought, well, that person's as good as that person, but that person's successful, that person's not. So I sought out Gary O'Callaghan, and for people my age, they'd remember he was the most successful broadcaster in Sydney with a massive audience before FM came into being. And I went to him when I was doing traffic for him in the early 80s, and I said, and I was quite sincere, I said, Gary, you are really successful, there must be a secret. And I thought he'd have this elixir, this formula that I could follow. And he looked at me, and I'd known him for about 4 or 5 months, and he looked me up and down and he said, what's your name? And I thought, oh, early stages of dementia here for Gazza. It's Ray Hadley, Gary. He said, yes, I know your name. He said, but do you know who you are? And I said, yeah, I just told him I'm Ray Hadley. He said, son, I want you to remember this for the rest of your career. Be yourself.
100%.
If you can be yourself, and when you're really angry, get really angry. When you're really happy, laugh. When you're sad, maybe you'll shed a tear. But be yourself, because, and he pointed at the microphone in the studio, he said, the TV camera I'm looking at now, he said, sometimes you can feign things, but your voice will always give you away.
Have there been times where you almost walked away? And how long do you think you can hold on for?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, in the bad times, you sort of get in the fetal position and you hide, you know, and then you pull yourself together. And what I've done, with the help of people like John Singleton, the former owner of our network, he said to me, dust yourself up, get back in there tomorrow morning and turn the microphone on. And I've done that. And some days I haven't felt like turning the microphone on, but I have. And I've, you know, shared with my audience why I don't feel like turning the microphone on that particular day for, you know, a myriad of reasons, mainly very personal, which, you know, impacts on me and other people in my life. In relation to your question about how long does it go, well, I'm there till 2026, and then I'll make an assessment in the last 3 to 6 months. I mean, I'll be 69 in September. By the time my contract's finished, I'll be approaching 72. And the last thing I want to do is impose myself on an audience longer than I should.
Mate, if Biden can rule the world in his 80s, you can well and truly keep our attention and probably look even better on the beach than he does right now. All right, just a couple of ones about the news. Do you reckon that people are now starting to put 2 and 2 together, that Anthony Albanese talked a big game, frankly BS'd his way into the Lodge on a promise of doing something about cost of living, and all of it's got worse since he turned up?
I was always fearful, and I think we expressed this on your program before the election, that, you know, I don't have a problem with Anthony Albanese per se, but it's the people he surrounded himself with, and captain, coach and sole selector of the dimwits is, of course, Chris Bowen. who's in charge of one of the worst portfolios you could possibly give him. I'd rather he go back to immigration and we'd have a flood of boats coming on the horizon as they came when he was in that portfolio. But, I mean, that's the problem. The problem is the people on the periphery, and the problem is the left of the government who seem to direct him. I think the other major issue that he went off early on is the voice. I think that if you read the way things are at the moment, the tea leaves, as they say, I think all of a sudden people are waking to the fact that they want to know exactly what's going to happen after the referendum. And they want to know before the referendum what's going to happen after the referendum. And the most important factor of all this, Warren Mundine, Jacinta Price are not racist. They're not racist. But because they're leading the charge on the no vote, despite being very proud Indigenous Australians, they're being labelled as racist. And if you dare stand up, university students, I've spoken to them, young men and women in their late teens, and we have a yarn about, the voice. And they say, look, I don't really know how I'm going to vote, but if anyone at uni finds out I'm voting no, oh my God, there'll be hell to pay. I mean, that's the problem we have at the moment. It's not so much about what people think, it's what other people will think about them. And when Linda Burney calls people racist, and when the Prime Minister suggests you're racist if you don't vote yes, well, all of a sudden I think they're flogging a dead horse. There have only been 8 referendums successful out of 44 since Federation, and they're all bipartisan. This is not bipartisan. He's going to have a big, big problem getting across the line in all the states and, of course, the Commonwealth.
Ray, congratulations on 150 survey victories. That is no small feat. It is a huge achievement in a Hall of Fame career, not a once-in-a-generation, but once-in-a-lifetime talent and committed broadcaster. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for spending some time with us. And again, congratulations, mate.
You're far too kind. You know how much I love you, and you look after yourself, OK?
He's a good man. He deserves everything that's coming his way. And as I said, he's a man who understands that when he started his career, it was Laws and Jones. Well, now it is the uninterrupted run of Ray Hadley. 150 uninterrupted survey wins. It's never been done before by any broadcaster in Sydney. He's been able to do it. Congratulations to him and his team. I look forward to talking to Ray many, many more times into the future.